So, you think you know the golden era of bodybuilding? Buckle up because this story goes way beyond the stage and the spotlight. A champion, a name you won't forget, in a moment that changed everything. Ken Waller lived the glory, faced public judgment, and left behind a legacy that still fires up generations. This isn't just about muscles. It's about guts, loyalty, and pushing through. Grab your pre-workout and join us as we relive one of the most powerful journeys in bodybuilding history. What really happened and who this man truly was might just surprise you. Before he became known as a bodybuilding giant, Ken Waller was just a regular kid growing up in Jeffersonville, Indiana. Born on March 20th, 1942, sports were always a part of his life. As a kid, he stood out in school competitions and had an energy that seemed endless. It didn't take long for people to notice his talent, especially on the football field, where he'd later shine. In college, Waller played for Western Kentucky University and was part of the undefeated team that crushed it at the 1963 Tangerine Bowl. He was the full package, disciplined, competitive, and with a work ethic that even coaches admired. Football eventually took him to Canada, where he played professionally. But something inside him started to shift. Football was good, but it wasn't enough. It was during those years of training and traveling that Waller had his first real taste of weightlifting. At first, it was just a way to stay strong for football. But before long, it became a full-blown passion. Lifting weights turned into a healthy obsession, and he started diving deep into studying the human body. Who would have guessed those casual gym sessions were the first step toward a legendary career on the bodybuilding stage? After serving in the U.S. Navy, Waller even spent some time teaching high school. Life was pulling him in different directions, but he never gave up training. On the contrary, he was more hooked than ever. That's when it clicked. The stage was his new battlefield, and he wanted to dominate it. Standing at 6 feet tall, 1.83 m, and weighing over 220 pounds, 100 kilograms of solid muscle, Waller turned heads everywhere he went. He had that classic golden era look, big, balanced, and commanding. But it wasn't just his physique that stood out. It was his presence. He walked into a room and instantly owned it. You know the guy who just has it? That was him. Ken Waller's early journey shows how bodybuilding can sneak into your life when you least expect it. Sometimes your real passion shows up in the middle of routine, during life's transitions, or after starting over from scratch. When Waller finally committed to bodybuilding full-time, the sport was already filled with legends in the making. But he wasn't fazed. With a rare combo of raw power, symmetry, and charisma, he started hitting the stage with a confidence that turned heads. Every show was a chance to prove he wasn't just there to compete. He was there to win. From the late 1960s to the mid-70s, Waller racked up titles and respect at lightning speed. In 1970, he won Mr. World, one of the biggest titles at the time, and he did it again in 1971 and 1972. In 71, he also snagged the Mr. America title, cementing his rise as a top name in the amateur scene. Those wins paved the way for something even bigger, a breakthrough in the pro world. 1975 was a turning point. Competing at the prestigious Mr. Universe in Pretoria, South Africa, Waller took home the overall title, beating out guys like Roger Walker and Paul Grant. The win stirred up some controversy, but his stage presence and conditioning were undeniable. That moment officially put him in the same league as the era's biggest names and opened the door to the Mr. Olympia. At the 1976 Mr. Olympia, Waller hit the stage alongside the sport's heavy hitters and delivered. In the over 200-pound category, he came out on top, even beating his friend and rival Mike Katz. That one was a milestone. It proved Waller wasn't just a top amateur. He was one of the best pros of his generation. What's really wild is that even when surrounded by legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, and Frank Zane, Ken Waller never faded into the background. His physique, broad chest, thick legs, massive shoulders, left a lasting impression. But it wasn't just his body. It was the way he owned the stage. His confidence, posture, and natural charisma had the crowd hooked every time. It's kind of crazy how, in a sea of champions, Waller still managed to stand out. He wasn't as symmetrical as Zayn or as massive as Ferrigno, but he nailed that perfect balance of size, conditioning, and attitude. That made him the total package. Because at the end of the day, bodybuilding isn't just about numbers. It's about presence, impact, and consistency. And yet, despite his stacked trophy shelf, Ken Waller became iconic for something way beyond his muscles. One controversial scene in the documentary Pumping Iron. Released in 1977, the film helped launch bodybuilding into the mainstream and made stars like Arnold Schwarzenegger household names. But among all the epic scenes and intense training, one moment stood out, and not in a good way. Waller was shown pulling a prank on fellow competitor Mike Katz. In the footage, just before the 1975 Mr. Universe, Waller is seen laughing and telling others he's going to hide Katz's lucky t-shirt. He jokes, lays out the plan, and it's all caught on camera like some cold-hearted move. Katz comes off as the likable underdog, while Waller gets painted as the cocky villain. The editing worked too well. It totally reshaped how people saw him. But here's what almost nobody knew at the time. The whole thing was staged. That prank was actually suggested by the filmmakers to spice things up. The scene with Waller talking about the shirt, it was filmed after the contest, in a totally different setting. Still, the damage was done. The edit created a fake persona that ended up staining a real athlete's reputation. Unfair? Totally. That one scene hit Waller hard. Instead of cheers, he started getting booed at shows. Fans no longer saw a champion. They saw the guy who stole the shirt. And in a sport where charisma and fan connection are almost as important as the physique, that was a brutal blow. The most ironic part? Ken Waller and Mike Katz were friends. They respected each other as athletes and as people. Later on, they even did events together and joked about that infamous scene. Waller said in interviews he never imagined it would blow up like that. And Katz? He never took the stolen shirt seriously. They moved on, but the public never really let Ken off the hook. This whole thing just shows how powerful storytelling can be, sometimes even more than the truth. In a pre-social media world, a single film could shape public opinion forever. Waller became bodybuilding's first villain, a label he never asked for. But even with that label hanging over him, Ken Waller didn't let it define his story. He kept grinding, showing that his love for bodybuilding ran deeper than any controversy. Up until 1981, he stayed in the game, going head-to-head with the best in the world. He competed in shows like the Night of Champions and Mr. Olympia, holding his own among the top pros. He knew that actions speak louder than rumors. Even with the boos and the judgmental looks, Waller proved he was more than just a body. He had mental toughness. He could have walked away after Pumping Iron, but he didn't. He stuck around. And that says something rare, the courage to face the noise and keep showing up. How many people would have done that? Outside the stage, Waller dipped his toes into Hollywood too. He had roles in Stay Hungry and Kill the Golden Goose, acting alongside big names like Arnold. He also showed up in the Incredible Hulk series, proving his charm reached beyond the gym. For a bodybuilder in the 70s, that was bold and ahead of its time. But maybe the most impressive side of Ken wasn't on stage or on screen. It was what he gave back behind the scenes. After retiring, he ran a gym and became a promoter for bodybuilding events and expos. Instead of stepping away from the sport, he chose to nurture the next generation. Waller became a mentor, a coach, and a judge. Ken took his role as a judge seriously. He knew how much a single placing could make or break an athlete's career. So he brought his experience to the table with fairness and integrity, even though he'd been misjudged himself so many times. That says a lot about his character. He cared more about the sport than about his ego. Pretty solid lesson in maturity, don't you think? He was also known for being super approachable. At expos and seminars, he made a point of talking to fans, sharing advice, and motivating young lifters. He wasn't one of those untouchable legends. He was the kind of guy who'd sit in the corner of the gym and chat with you about training, diet, and yeah, even that famous movie that flipped his life upside down. That realness earned him a deeper kind of respect over time. This human side of Ken Waller shows that behind the fame and controversy, there was a real dude with flaws, strengths, and an intense love for what he did. Ken wasn't just known for his titles. He was known for how seriously he took his training. He believed a powerful physique was built on intensity, technique, and consistency. No going through the motions just to say you showed up. For Waller, every rep had to mean something. That's how he built that legendary frame, through strategy and laser focus. He trained 4 days a week, enough to pack on size but still allow for solid recovery. Mondays and Thursdays were for legs, chest, and back. Tuesdays and Fridays were for shoulders, arms, and abs. Calves? Every single day. No skipping calves, a mistake he saw way too many people making. Be honest, do you train calves every day? Waller swore it was non-negotiable. On leg day, his weapon of choice was the heavy squat. He'd do up to 7 sets, progressively loading the bar until he hit his limit. For him, you couldn't build a real physique without strong legs. Squatting was sacred, and it wasn't just for looks. He believed leg power elevated your performance across the board. Chest and back day was equally intense. Bench press with a barbell, incline with dumbbells, bend over rows, pull downs, pull-ups, and dips until failure. He'd warm up with light supersets of pull-ups and dips, just enough to get everything fired up before the real grind started. No rush, no distractions, just him, the iron, and a mission to beat yesterday. On arm and shoulder day, he stuck to heavy, old-school moves. Barbell curls, concentration curl for the peak, triceps extensions, military presses, and behind-the-neck presses. No fancy machines, no gimmicks. He believed the old ways still work best. Every movement was done with control, a steady rhythm, and zero shortcuts. You know those workouts that leave you wrecked, but smiling? That's the vibe he trained with. And while he pushed serious weight, Ken wasn't reckless. He adjusted loads based on how his body felt, prioritized stretching, and knew when to back off. If he felt he was pushing past the point of growth, he dialed it down. His motto? Better to do 10 sets with soul than 20 on autopilot. His training style was simple, direct, and brutally effective. He proved you don't need to reinvent the wheel to get results. You just need to train with heart. And it didn't stop in the gym. Ken took his nutrition seriously too. No fluff, just smart choices. His motto was clear: eat to grow, but eat smart. For Waller, food quality mattered just as much as training intensity. It wasn't about eating a lot, it was about eating right. And that mindset helped him build that clean, classic physique. His diet was grounded in lean proteins like chicken, fish, eggs, and lean cuts of beef. These gave him the fuel to maintain and grow thick, dense muscle. He treated his body like a high-performance machine. Better fuel meant better output. On the carb side, he leaned into complex sources like brown rice, oats, sweet potatoes, and whole grains. These gave him long-lasting energy for brutal workouts and helped him recover properly. No sugar spikes or junk food binges to bulk. According to him, real gains came from consistency, not from stuffing yourself. And of course, fruits and veggies were always on his plate for balance, recovery, and long-term health. One of Waller's signature takes? He had zero patience for dirty bulking. He said it straight: eat like a pig, look like a pig. For him, gaining weight by piling on fat was just lazy. Definition and aesthetics always came first. After all, what's the point of packing on mass if it doesn't look good? That's a question a lot of modern lifters should probably ask themselves too, don't you think? Ken wasn't into trends or gimmicks. No weird diets, no flashy supplements. He stuck to 3 solid meals a day, with snacks in between when needed. Everything was balanced, straightforward, and practical. He believed the real secret was consistency, not overcomplicating things. And maybe that's one reason his physique is still remembered today as a benchmark of symmetry and proportion. For Waller, dieting wasn't a phase, it was a lifestyle. There was no contest season followed by slack season. He kept things tight all year round, just adjusting portions based on his goals, but never losing focus. That kind of mindset is rare, the kind that knows success lives in the small daily details. The way Ken approached food said everything about who he was: disciplined, focused, and committed to the best possible result. Over time, the truth about that infamous pumping iron scene started to surface. Ken Waller and Mike Katz, portrayed in the film as bitter rivals, actually shared mutual respect and even friendship in real life. Later on, they appeared at events together, laughing about the whole thing and publicly clearing the air. Katz never held a grudge. To him, it was just misunderstood entertainment. But sadly, the audience didn't let it go so easily. Waller was labeled the villain of bodybuilding for decades. In a pre-internet world, one well-edited scene could shape how thousands of people saw you. In a way, he was the sport's first canceled figure, long before cancel culture and social media even existed. That whole mess served as a major wake-up call for athletes. Reputation matters a lot. In bodybuilding, muscles alone aren't enough. Fans want to feel something. They want to connect, be inspired, and admire you as a person. And if your public image breaks, not even the biggest trophies can save you. Waller faced that truth every time he stepped on stage and got booed, even when he was in top form. Ken Waller's story isn't just a tale from the golden era. It's a masterclass for anyone starting out today. The first lesson: reputation is everything. You can have the best physique in the world, but if people don't respect you, it won't matter. Waller was one of the first to learn that the hard way. The second lesson is about what legacy really means. Sure, trophies matter, but they rust, fade, and eventually get forgotten. The way you impact people, that's what lasts. Waller inspired athletes, fans, and even shaped the behind-the-scenes side of the sport. He was a mentor, a judge, a promoter, way more than just a competitor. The third big takeaway is about the power of narrative. Waller got branded as a villain over a staged moment. But over time, the truth came out. And even more important, he overcame it. He kept showing up, kept giving back, and became a symbol of resilience. That proves your story doesn't have to end where someone else tries to write it. Another lesson: be ready for plot twists. Every athlete's journey has ups and downs. You'll win some, lose some, get praised, get criticized. Waller went through all of that and still held on to who he really was. He didn't lose himself in the role others forced on him. And in today's world, where so many people trade authenticity for attention, that's a rare kind of strength. To talk about Ken Waller's legacy is to dive deep into what the golden era was really about. He wasn't just another name from the 1970s. He helped shape the look, attitude, and spirit of the sport during that time. Waller was size, symmetry, charisma, and grit. But he also had that quiet strength and respect that true legends carry. His titles, Mr. Universe, Mr. World, and Mr. Olympia, over 200 pounds, put him among the most accomplished of his era. But what really made him unforgettable was how he combined results with presence. He wasn't just a body on stage. He was a character, an icon, someone who made crowds buzz, whether for his physique or the way he carried himself. And even the pumping iron drama, as unfair as it was, added to his legend. That scene took his name worldwide. The missing t-shirt moment became one of the most talked about clips in bodybuilding history. And while he was labeled the villain, he also became a symbol of a time when the sport gained drama, emotion, and a story worth watching. Even today, old-school bodybuilders still name-drop Ken Waller as a reference. His physique is studied by athletes chasing that perfect balance between size and aesthetics. He embodied the ideal look of the era, big but proportional, powerful yet graceful. His waistline, muscle density, and stage presence continue to inspire those who see bodybuilding as an art, not just a numbers game. Even off stage, Ken Waller never really left the bodybuilding world. Now in his 80s, he lives in California and still shows up at events, lectures, and seminars. His name continues to draw in fans, athletes, and curious newcomers eager to hear firsthand stories from someone who lived through the golden era. It's like the fire of competition still burns inside him. Waller runs his own gym, where he coaches up-and-coming athletes and guides fitness lovers with advice worth its weight in gold. He believes knowledge has to be shared. That's why he takes time to talk, teach, correct form, and promote healthy growth in the sport. Training with him isn't just about technique. It's about values, vision, and respect. Beyond bodybuilding, Ken also gives back through social causes. He supports community programs, works with at-risk youth, and promotes inclusion through fitness. For him, bodybuilding isn't just a path to trophies, it's a tool to transform lives. And let's be honest, when someone with that kind of legacy gets involved, the impact is massive. To many, Ken Waller is a living example of longevity in sports. With over 80 years under his belt, he remains active, sharp, and full of life. It's not just about staying fit, it's his mindset, his enthusiasm, and his humility. He proves that time doesn't have to be an enemy. In fact, it can be your ally if you treat your body with discipline and your spirit with purpose. His journey inspires not just athletes, but anyone who wants to age with quality. Waller shows that you don't have to give up passion, movement, or purpose as you get older. It's not about chasing podiums anymore. It's about planting seeds. Think about it. What's your relationship with training going to look like in 30 or 40 years? Ken proves that real love for what you do doesn't come with an expiration date. He's also a frequent presence in documentaries, interviews, and content about bodybuilding history, always ready to share his story with honesty, never hiding his mistakes or inflating his achievements. That makes everything he says even more powerful. Waller's not chasing the spotlight. He's sharing because he believes in the truth. And in today's world, that's rare. Ken Waller closes out his journey the same way he started it, with passion, strength, and authenticity. From a small-town kid to a world champion, from misunderstood villain to respected mentor, his life is a powerful example of resilience, character, and legacy. If this story moved you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who also believes in the power of perseverance. Smash that like button. It really helps the channel and shows us you care about stories that actually matter. And don't forget to subscribe, because here, we're not just talking about athletes. We're talking about real people who made bodybuilding a way of life. You can also become a member and support this project that's all about preserving the sport's greatest stories. Your support helps us keep bringing you top-tier content with research, respect, and real passion. If you're already a member, thank you. None of this happens without you. Now drop a comment. What hit you the most in Ken Waller's journey? Was it the pumping iron drama, his grit in the face of booze, or the way he's still going strong today? We read everything and reply whenever we can. Your voice is a big part of this channel. And hey, if you like this video, there's more waiting for you. Check out the card up here or the link in the description. Click it and keep following us on this journey through the true spirit of bodybuilding. Thanks for watching all the way through. Ken Waller's story is a life lesson, and maybe, just maybe, that extra motivation you needed to keep pushing on your own path. See you in the next video.